We stand today at the threshold of one of life's most profound and enduring mysteries, the sequence of events, the subtle mechanics, and the deep emotional reality experienced by the soul during the critical 24 hours immediately following the physical body's final cessation of function. This is not a topic to be approached with frivolous curiosity or paralyzing dread, but with the quiet reverence and thoughtful contemplation befitting an inherent, inevitable stage of our immortal journey. Allan Kardec, the meticulous compiler and codifier of Spiritism, approached this grand subject not with dogma or blind faith, but with the rigorous, rational scrutiny of a philosopher seeking universal truth. His comprehensive body of work, built upon the harmonized testimony of countless disembodied intelligences, offers a specific, resonant counsel directed particularly at those who have crossed the significant milestone of 6 decades of earthly existence. For the mature soul, the understanding of this transition is not merely academic, it is a vital, practical preparation, transforming the final act of life from an unknown terror into a conscious, anticipated return. Kardec's profound insight reveals that the moment we label as death is in truth nothing less than a shift in vibration, a fundamental change in our state of being that pulls the spirit from the denseness of matter back toward the luminosity of its spiritual heritage. The spirit, having resided for so long within the confines of the flesh, begins to perceive with a piercing clarity that its true, eternal consciousness was never contingent upon the material shell, nor restricted by the dimension of fleeting time. Therefore, preparing for this shift is the ultimate act of self-knowledge and courage, an embracing of the cosmic rhythm that ensures continuity rather than catastrophic interruption. To know what happens after we breathe our last is ultimately to know how to live fully and peacefully now, ensuring that when the moment arrives, the soul is not caught unprepared, but steps consciously into the light of its own eternal dawn. This reflection is an invitation to view the twilight years not as a decline, but as the precious final chapter of conscious, spiritual preparation for the magnificent unfolding that lies just beyond the veil of matter. The experience of the soul in the initial period following its liberation is governed by one of the most immutable and just principles of the universe, the law of affinity, which ensures that the spirit's awakening on the other side is a perfect, unadulterated mirror of its moral and intellectual condition, cultivated throughout its material life. This is not a judgment delivered by an external detached deity, but rather the intrinsic, natural consequence of the choices, habits, and fundamental inner vibration that the spirit has continuously emitted. For those highly evolved and reflective souls, individuals who habitually cultivated self-control, forgiveness, selfless compassion, and a serene detachment from the fleeting vanities of the world, the separation from the physical body is described as being astonishingly light and rapid. Their spiritual body, known as the perispirit, which serves as the subtle envelope connecting the spirit to the physical form, is already attenuated and rarefied by their virtuous existence. When the ties of life are broken, the spirit slides out of the chrysalis of the flesh with the gentle ease of an experienced traveler, laying down a heavy, unnecessary cloak. The environment they awaken to is immediately responsive to their peaceful, elevated state, allowing them to perceive light, harmony, and the welcome presence of aligned spiritual beings almost instantly. Conversely, for those souls who have dedicated their lives to fierce material accumulation, who are weighted down by unaddressed resentments, who possess a harsh, unforgiving attitude towards others, or who are consumed by intense, unbridled earthly passions, the departure is far more turbulent and difficult. Their perispirit, having been densely charged and saturated by these heavy, low-frequency vibrations, clings tightly to the physical body, resulting in an extended and agonizing process of forced separation. The spirit may awaken into a state of profound confusion, disorientation, and even intense localized suffering, not as an arbitrary divine punishment, but because they are physically, mentally, and emotionally attuned only to the density they have cultivated. Their consciousness, still desperately seeking the material anchors it clung to, the house, the money, the routines, the relationships, finds itself incapable of immediately grasping the higher reality. The darkness they perceive is not external. It is the shadow cast by their own unaddressed fears, unresolved conflicts, and persistent low spiritual frequency. This confusion is a powerful self-imposed educational tool, forcing the spirit to confront the exact consequences of its earthly choices. Therefore, the state of the soul in those first 24 hours is the ultimate, undeniable proof of the spiritual law that we attract to ourselves, the vibration we tirelessly sow while we are alive. The transition is inherently fair, for the experience of the newly departed soul is nothing more than the perfect, instantaneous fulfillment of the internal atmosphere it spent an entire lifetime building. The cornerstone of Kardec's teaching is the transformative concept that death, as commonly feared and defined, simply does not exist in the spiritual reality. It is merely a change of state, the necessary fluid mechanism that ensures the eternal continuity of consciousness. The human experience is a perpetual sequence of movements, and the moment of material death represents the cyclical return, the fundamental shift in the soul's focus from the physical dimension back to its native, permanent home in the spiritual realm. For those who have reached the autumn of their lives, the spirit has had a long duration of material experience, and in its deepest core, it recognizes the familiar, non-material essence of its true being. The body, the grand vehicle of experience, grows weary, slows its pace, and begins to shed its vitality not as a sign of failure, but because it has successfully fulfilled the mission for which it was temporarily constructed. The spirit's true reality transcends the constraints of time and space, and upon its liberation it begins to perceive, with an intense and growing clarity, that the material world was nothing more than a temporary, dense schoolroom. Kardec meticulously detailed the process of disincarnation, explaining that the separation is gradual and proportional to the spirit's moral elevation and degree of detachment. It is never a sudden, brutal severing, but a systematic unbinding of the fluidic threads of the perispirit from the physical organism. He used the beautiful and powerful metaphor of the diver who resurfaces after a prolonged immersion. The spirit returns to its natural element, shaking off the temporary weight of the water. The spirit does not acquire new powers or new knowledge upon death. It simply recovers its inherent faculties that were temporarily dulled and limited by the density of the physical body. It becomes what it always was, an intelligent, conscious being. Therefore, to be prepared for the physical transition is to fully accept the natural rhythm of this grand return, understanding that the cycle of birth and death is merely a single, coherent movement within the infinite existence of the spirit. The fear of death, Kardec asserted, is rooted in the ignorance of this vital truth, the mistaken belief that the cessation of the body equates to the annihilation of the self. Once this deep-seated spiritual reality is understood and accepted, the prospect of death ceases to be an interruption and is instead embraced as the most significant step forward in the eternal evolution of the soul, a magnificent continuity that carries the spiritual essence onward, unblemished and entire. The initial 24 hours following the perceived time of death constitute a highly specialized and sacred phase, a true border state, where the newly disembodied spirit remains profoundly connected to the world it has just left, primarily through the lingering influence of the perispirit. This subtle semi-material envelope does not instantly dematerialize. Its fluidic connection to the physical body often persists for a time, acting as an energetic tether that gradually slackens and dissolves. During this critical interval, the spirit may experience sensations that are a confusing amalgamation of the physical and the spiritual. It may still feel the sensation of fatigue, perceive a need to breathe, or attempt to move its physical limbs, operating entirely on the deeply ingrained habits of a lifetime in the flesh. The intensity and duration of this residual sensation are directly proportional to the spirit's material attachments. A soul heavily focused on earthly life, who had no concept of life after death, may find itself trapped in an agonizing confusion, unable to understand why it can see and hear but cannot interact or be seen. They are living in the body's shadow, experiencing an echo of its vital functions. Kardec's research revealed that in this border state, the spirit's lucidity is not immediate or uniform. It is a process of slow, selective awakening. Initially, many spirits find themselves in a form of spiritual lethargy or semi-sleep, a compassionate mechanism of nature that cushions the shock of separation, protecting the soul from the traumatic realization of its new state. The sounds and sights of the morning room, The actions of the living and the presence of the beloved corpse can all be registered by the spirit, leading to potential distress if the scene is characterized by frantic sorrow or excessive possessive grief. This is why Kardec strongly advised for an atmosphere of calm, gentle prayer and quiet respect around the newly departed. The spirit is gradually becoming aware of its perispirit, its new fluidic form, as the instrument of sensation and movement, an ethereal duplicate of the physical body. It is learning to operate this new vehicle, which is far more sensitive to thought and emotion than the dense physical shell ever was. For the mature soul, comprehending this temporary sacred phase means recognizing the need to consciously and calmly detach from the sensory input of the physical environment, focusing inward on the higher spiritual planes. This quiet, internal focus, practiced in life, ensures that when this frontier moment arrives, the spirit does not linger in the shadow of the grave, but turns its attention immediately toward the rising sun of its true home. The event of physical death acts as the ultimate and unsparing equalizer, dismantling all the superficial hierarchies and artificial valuations constructed by human society. As the spirit awakens beyond the veil, it finds itself stripped bare of every single outward sign of its earthly status. Gone are the titles, the accumulated wealth, the social influence, the physical beauty, and the power that once commanded others. The true value and currency of the spiritual plane are entirely non-material, consisting only of the soul's accrued moral, intellectual, and emotional development. The grand transition acts as an inventory, a moment where the spirit can only carry forward the intrinsic content of its own consciousness, leaving behind every material anchor and every worldly vanity. Kardec emphasized that in this moment, the only things that truly matter are the virtues cultivated, the degree of love extended to one's neighbor, the acts of sincere charity performed, the patience exhibited in trials, the humility practiced in success, and the relentless honesty maintained in all interactions. The judgment passed on the spirit is not an external decree, but an inner confrontation with the unadulterated truth of its own existence. The spirit sees its past life unfolding not as a detached spectator, but as an immersive participant, perceiving the exact impact of its actions on others, feeling the joy it generated and the pain it inflicted, all through the intensified sensibility of the perispirit. This spontaneous self-assessment is the essence of the spiritual justice system. A wealthy man who lived selfishly finds his consciousness burdened and heavy, while a humble laborer who practiced profound kindness awakens in a state of unexpected, luminous freedom. The physical difference between the two is erased. The spiritual difference is amplified. Thus, the wisdom imparted to those in their later years is a profound call to re-evaluate their investment strategy. Why labor ceaselessly to hoard material possessions and fleeting recognition that must be abandoned at the grave's edge, when one can focus entirely on cultivating the virtues, the only true, transferable assets that brighten the perispirit and ensure a tranquil, luminous awakening? To recognize the grand equality of the spiritual transit is to live with a fierce commitment to moral clarity, understanding that in the final accounting, the only clothing that truly matters is the immaculate radiance of a conscience lived in harmony with the divine law. The most vital and practical counsel Kardec offered for a tranquil transition is the cultivation of true, heartfelt detachment, a profound and conscious practice that begins not in the final hours, but across the entire span of our active lives. Spiritual preparation is fundamentally the process of learning to willingly release our emotional and intellectual grips on the transient before we are physically forced to relinquish them. Detachment is not a passive resignation or a withdrawal from life. Quite the opposite. It is an active, deliberate choice to engage with the world with an open heart, but a non-possessive spirit. It means choosing, every day, the path of serenity over the agitation of resentment, the peace of gratitude over the sting of complaint, and the liberating embrace of universal love over the constricting force of ego and petty conflicts. The goal is to live our lives with increasing spiritual lightness. Kardec often used the analogy of a traveler wisely packing for a journey. The seasoned traveler carries only the essentials. In our latter years, as the physical body naturally begins its process of functional decline, the spirit is gently offered an unparalleled opportunity to reinforce this essential detachment. The lessening of physical capacity, the loss of youthful vigor, and the changes in sensory perception are not curses, but conscious invitations from the spirit's higher self to turn its focus inward. The fading of the material senses serves to sharpen the spiritual intuition. When one has practiced this gentle letting go throughout life, the final act of separation ceases to be a traumatic shock and becomes a graceful fulfillment. The soul, having learned to view the body not as a prison but as a cherished instrument, allows the instrument to rest without attempting to cling to its decaying structure. This internal preparation is the only true guarantee of a peaceful departure, ensuring that when the moment of truth arrives, the spirit is not saturated by the heavy residue of earthly possessiveness. Instead, it is able to emerge from the body like a mature fruit falling effortlessly from the branch, light, whole, and perfectly ready for the new season of its existence. This detachment is the highest form of love for oneself and for the grand evolutionary plan of the Creator. In the sacred liminal hours immediately following a loved one's physical transition, the living assume a vital, sacred duty to provide the departing soul with a fluidic bridge of high-frequency energy, primarily through the focused power of sincere prayer and the maintenance of profound inner calm. Kardec's studies clearly established that prayer is not a magical petition that can unilaterally alter the destiny or progression of a spirit, as the spirit's evolutionary path is entirely dependent on its own merit and effort. Rather, prayer functions as a directed beam of energy, a powerful magnetic current of pure, selfless love that offers the newly disembodied soul a sense of direction, certainty, and luminous assistance. He likened the situation to a small, bewildered vessel navigating through a dense spiritual fog. The prayers of the living act as a brilliant, steady lighthouse, illuminating the right course and reassuring the traveler that they are not alone. The spiritual environment perceived by the spirit in its first moments is profoundly influenced by the emotional climate of those around the body it has just vacated. Desperate, frantic, or possessive weeping, coupled with inconsolable attachment and disbelief, generates a powerful, low-frequency vibration. This dense, fluidic environment can inadvertently act as a chain, hindering the spirit's ascent and tethering it to the material world it is striving to leave. In contrast, tears of serene acceptance, prayers of genuine gratitude for the life lived, and focused thoughts of peace and love create a rarefied, high-frequency envelope that acts as a spiritual lift, easing the soul's ascent and facilitating its recognition of its guides. Therefore, for those who remain behind, the greatest act of love is not to demand the spirit's return or to lament its departure, but to consciously, deliberately cultivate inner composure and send forth a gentle, sustained current of pure affection, allowing the spirit to let go freely. This understanding transforms the act of mourning from a self-focused expression of grief into an act of supreme spiritual charity, a final conscious collaboration that ensures the beloved soul is lifted and embraced by the collective energy of peace and acceptance, thereby confirming the profound teaching that genuine love always knows how to peacefully and trustingly let go. As the years accumulate and we pass the significant marker of 60, the natural process of aging begins to subtly transmit a series of profound and gentle signals, not of impending disaster or finality, but of the soul's impending and necessary return to its higher station. Kardec viewed the progressive weakening of the physical structure not as a biological tragedy, but as a deliberate, thoughtful cue from the wisdom of nature, a systematic and compassionate preparation for the inevitable transition. These signals are the slowing of the pace, the increasing desire for reflective silence, the diminishing acuity of the physical senses, and the profound, reflective pause that often characterizes the gaze of the elderly. They are the initial soft movements of the great symphony of the soul, as it tunes itself to a higher, less material frequency. When these changes are observed through the lens of spiritual understanding, they are transformed from symbols of decline into precious opportunities for conscious maturity. The inevitable acquisition of wrinkles, the thinning of the hair, and the slowing of the physical engine cease to be sources of vanity or dismay, instead becoming visible, external symbols of the soul's profound richness and experience. Each wrinkle is a line written by the hands of wisdom, each moment of silence a testament to the soul's growing preference for internal contemplation over external clamor. Aging in the spiritual context is a process of refinement and purification, where the gradual weakening of the body serves to strengthen and clarify the soul's intuition and inner perception. When the material form becomes less dominant, the voice of the spirit within becomes louder and more distinct. This perspective allows the mature individual to transcend the fear of the physical sunset, embracing the latter years as a purposeful threshold to a deeper, more comprehensive understanding of existence. The soul is being taught, day by day, to rely less on the visible and tangible and more on the unseen and the eternal. By consciously accepting these wisdom signals, the individual is actively participating in their own spiritual preparation, ensuring that the body's eventual surrender is met not with surprise, but with the quiet recognition of a planned and natural event. Thus, the perceived decline of the body is in truth the brilliant strengthening of the spirit. A central critical teaching from the Spiritist codification concerning the initial hours post-mortem is the tremendous, almost instantaneous power of the liberated spirit's thought, now magnified and amplified by its freedom from the dense confines of the physical brain. On the spiritual plane, thought is not merely an internal abstract process, it is a creative, magnetic and formative force that instantaneously shapes the spirit's perceived environment and determines its immediate energetic situation. The spirit thinks, and its dominant thought instantly creates its atmosphere, its surroundings and its reality. If the spirit awakens consumed by fear, guilt or attachment, its thought automatically attracts and creates a dense, shadowy and potentially suffocating environment. Conversely, a spirit that has consistently focused its life on love, forgiveness and enlightened intellectual pursuit finds its initial thoughts radiating a powerful light, immediately attracting harmonious surroundings and benevolent spiritual companions. Kardec meticulously detailed that the perispirit, now the sole vehicle of sensation and manifestation, is acutely and instantly sensitive to the spirit's mental state. This subtle body reflects and registers every inner tremor and every impulse of the will. The newly departed spirit, accustomed to the slow material reality of the earth, is often initially overwhelmed by this rapid causality, where desire or fear manifests with immediate effect. This is why those who cultivated mental discipline and focused, elevating thought in life find the transition so much smoother. They are not merely reacting to events, they are consciously directing their focus toward the higher spiritual spheres they already know exist. For the seasoned individual preparing for the transition, this is perhaps the greatest practical lesson: to rigorously cleanse the internal mental environment now, replacing all fear with faith, all resentment with forgiveness, and all possessiveness with universal love. In the new reality, the first act of the conscious spirit is often an act of direction, an inward focused prayer that serves not as a plea, but as a deliberate statement of intent, aligning the spirit's own frequency with the highest possible light. The environment of the spiritual realm is, therefore, never an arbitrary location. It is the instantaneous projection of the soul's innermost dominant thought. One of the most comforting and universally consistent pieces of testimony collected by Allan Kardec relates to the assured, gentle assistance and the joyous re-encounter that awaits the newly departed soul. The profound truth established through these spiritual accounts is that no soul, regardless of its moral state or degree of confusion, ever crosses the threshold of death completely alone or without assistance. The universe, governed by laws of compassion and progression, ensures that immediate supportive care is available. This assistance comes primarily in two forms: the presence of specialized spiritual guides and the immediate powerful arrival of beloved friends and family who have previously passed on. The energy of these established spiritual residents acts as a warm, luminous beacon, instantly recognizable to the traveler. The spiritual guides, often referred to as guardian angels or protecting spirits, are highly evolved, patient intelligences whose sole mission is to facilitate the transition, offering comfort, instruction, and gentle guidance to the bewildered soul. Their presence is described not as an imposing authority, but as a soothing, enveloping tenderness, a powerful certainty of being known and deeply cared for. Simultaneously, the unbreakable bonds of pure affection that unite family and friends transcend the barrier of physical death. The moment a soul is liberated, these spiritual affinities illuminate, drawing the departed loved ones to the scene of the transition. They may not always be visible to the newly arrived soul, especially if the soul is still in a state of confusion or lethargy, but their presence is powerfully felt as a field of intense familiar love and acceptance. This confirms the vital teaching that death is not a definitive loss, but a temporary separation, followed by an inevitable and sacred reunion, often far more luminous and complete than any meeting experienced on earth. Even if the soul is highly attached or in great distress, the compassionate guides may gently wrap the spirit in a temporary, soothing spiritual sleep, allowing it to rest and heal until it is truly ready to confront its new reality and receive the welcoming embrace of those who came before. This constant, loving assistance is the ultimate proof that the universe operates not by arbitrary chance, but by the relentless, beautiful law of eternal, supportive love. The ultimate experience of physical disincarnation is often best understood through the powerful and accessible analogy of a profound spiritual awakening, akin to the slow, transformative emergence of a butterfly from its dense, protective chrysalis. Kardec's accounts often depict the first moments as a gradual, often startling realization rather than a sudden, painful event. Many spirits describe a period of hazy semi-consciousness where they feel they have merely slept deeply, only to awaken to a world that looks similar but feels fundamentally different. The physical body, now recognized as a discarded shell, is often still nearby, and the soul may initially attempt to interact with the living, only to be bewildered by its invisibility and lack of physical power. This sense of confusion is a necessary, albeit temporary, phase of adaptation. The transition process is analogous to physical birth, but in reverse. Just as the soul cries upon the shocking, traumatic separation from the spiritual plane and its entrance into the dense material world, the soul often experiences a deep-seated smile of relief and profound liberation upon its return to the spiritual realm. The physical envelope is slowly and deliberately set aside, allowing the true core essence, the intelligent principle, to stretch and fully utilize its subtle, fluidic body, the perispirit. This period of awakening is not uniform. Its duration and clarity are directly dependent upon the moral and intellectual groundwork laid down during the earth life. The soul that cultivated deep introspection and non-attachment awakens with speed and lucidity, quickly grasping its new reality. Conversely, the soul tethered to material concerns may linger in this semi-conscious state, searching for the material comforts it prized until the persistent influence of its spiritual guides helps dissolve the heavy veil of illusion. This gentle evolutionary process underscores the wisdom of the spiritual economy. The universe is inherently compassionate, providing a temporary buffer against the shock of separation, allowing the soul to awaken slowly and calmly, only when it is truly psychologically and morally prepared to recognize the light of the eternal reality that has patiently awaited its return. The overarching integrated message from Allan Kardec, for those who have embraced the wisdom of the later years, is ultimately one of profound encouragement and an invitation to live with an elevated consciousness. His final counsel is not a morbid warning about an inescapable end, but a rallying call to spiritual awakening now, a powerful reminder that the knowledge of how to truly die is inseparable from the wisdom of how to truly live. The quality of our existence is the continuous invisible preparation for those essential 24 hours that follow our final breath. It is through the relentless work of self-improvement, the conscious choice to forgive all, the consistent practice of humility, and the determined cultivation of boundless gratitude that we ensure the lightness and clarity of our spiritual body. When we learn to diminish the power of pride, to gently release the burdens of the past, and to trust with unwavering faith in the grand evolutionary plan of the Creator, the ultimate transition ceases to be a frightening event. The mature soul who has lived in this manner does not encounter death as a formidable enemy, but recognizes it as a wise, anticipated friend arriving to lead them home. As the physical mechanism slows to a stop, the soul experiences not darkness, but an astonishing expansion of consciousness, an immediate realization that it can breathe without lungs, see without physical eyes, and love without the constraint of mere words. It understands in that moment that time was never a punishing enemy, but a dedicated and demanding teacher, and that its entire earthly sojourn was nothing more than a temporary, necessary stage in its infinite evolution. When the material form is finally shed, the soul that has consciously prepared whispers not in fear, but in triumphant recognition, "I have truly returned to my own home." This is the ultimate, liberating truth of the Spiritist codification. Live every hour so consciously and with such unwavering integrity that the moment of death does not take you by surprise, but greets you with the familiar, embracing warmth of a long-awaited friend. The end of the body is simply the beginning of luminous eternal life.